G'day guys, welcome to our coverage of Survivor 50, and we've got our cast list out now. 22 of the 24 players have been named, so we're going to go through ranking the best picks for returnees and the worst picks. We're going to start with the worst out of the cast and then move on through to the best. First of all, feel free to like, share and subscribe, and we're going to have loads more Survivor content coming up on the channel. So we're going to kick it off with the worst casting choice, in my opinion, Ozzy. Ozzy for me has... I was a little kid watching Survivor, channel flicking one day, and I channel flicked over and caught Survivor Guatemala. And it was right in the middle of when they were doing one of the challenges. It was the one where they're in the mud doing a tug of war in the challenge, and I was hooked as a little kid. I was absolutely all in. And so the challenges were really a thing that kind of gripped me in Survivor. But the thing is, the people who I wanted to see go to the end and win didn't really do that in Guatemala. And then I watched Panama the next season, and the same thing happened. Like, I kind of was following it. I was rooting for Terry because I was really into the challenges. Nowadays, you kind of recognise that Lamina are a pretty boring tribe, and Kasaya were way more interesting. But I think as a kid, I didn't really understand all that. I just wanted the people who were good at challenges to win. And then finally, my dream scenario actually happened in Cook Islands, where Ozzy led the tribe to led the I-24 to end up going to the final four. Ozzy. Every time I went to the beach in my mind, I was Ozzy. I loved swimming, I loved climbing, all that sort of thing. So yeah, I was such a big fan of Ozzy as a kid. It jumped out of my skin when I saw he was coming back from Micronesia. But then I kind of started really getting into the strategy of the show. And by the time season 23 came around and Ozzy was coming back again, I was like, okay, I don't really see much point to this. And then Game Changers, just over 5 years later, then I was really like, okay, what's the point? Like, he's already played 3 times. And on Game Changers, we really saw that, like, Ozzy's a good player. He's always going to get into the majority early on, typically, because he's great, obviously great in challenges and great around camp. He's going to do well. He's going to provide for the tribe, and then the individual game is going to hit, and he's just going to get voted off because he's seen as a pretty big threat. And the problem is now, I think he's just worse at challenges. I think Ozzy, for me though, has never been interesting when he's talked to the camera ever. And he's had 4 seasons to be, and he hasn't been yet. He's never been funny or anything like that. And yeah, we're just getting a worse. The only thing Ozzy really brings is his ability to get food at camp and ability to perform well in challenges. And as he gets older, he just gets worse at those 2 things. So we're just getting a worse version of Ozzy the longer we go. I think Ozzy will probably stick around till the merge and then just get voted off early. I think it's pretty straightforward with Ozzy. Pointless. It has never really been entertaining. Since I was a kid, at least. When I was a kid, I loved him, but nowadays, no. The one thing I am pumped about is to see Ozzy go up against the Colbys and the Joes and the Jonathans in challenges. That will still be really fun. I like having him be part of that whole battle. So that'll be good. But, I think at the moment it's pretty pointless having Ozzy back again. And this is kind of like my biggest complaint with a few of the people is that we're getting these people come back for like a 3rd, 4th, 5th time in Ozzy's case. And we don't really need them back. You know, there's so many great people who haven't returned once. And we just keep on bringing back the same people. So... same thing with Aubrey. Aubrey for me is a lot more interesting than Ozzy, but still. And I also don't really count her Edge of Extinction experience as a proper go-around because her tribe wanted nothing to do with her and Joe at all. I think ultimately Aubrey is ranked 2nd last in this list just because we have already seen her several times. We saw her in Game Changers and she actually did quite well, but we didn't hear from her the whole season. Like, there's really not much she offers, apart from when she got pissed off at Debbie and decided to go after her and then blindside her. That was great. Played phenomenally her first season, but again, speaking of her first season, I would have much rather seen Sydney back instead of Aubrey. I think Sydney was a little bit better of a player than Aubrey in Ko Wrong. If I had to split the 2, they were both great, but yeah. And then I also love Aubrey's reaction when they announced in Edge of Extinction that there will be a 2nd Edge of Extinction challenge. That was amazing. If you ever see that one scene where just after Devon's won the challenge to get back into the game, and then Jeff announces to the players, like, there will be another chance to get back into the game later on, and Aubrey's reaction is so great. She loves this show. And that's more than what can be said for a couple of other people in the returning cast. But yeah, we've already seen Aubrey several times. I'd say bring back Sydney instead if you want another person from Ko Wrong who's a great player. She's the one. Next one is Joe. Joe, I don't think Joe comes off well on screen. Joe's one of these characters who, I think if you follow Joe around camp, he's actually really funny. But in confessionals, he doesn't seem to have... He's good at like bouncing off people and really has a lot of good little jokes with people. I think that's part of the reason why people love him, along with the fact that he kind of commands respect. But I've never really been entertained by Joe in Talking Heads, and I think here he's probably going to get less camera time around camp than he did previously. So, yeah, I don't see much point to bringing back Joe. Joe is also one where we've only just seen him play. You know, we don't really need to see him immediately after when we've got so many other people to pick from. But same with Aussie, I am looking forward to seeing Joe battle it out with some of these other all-time challenge beasts, so that'll be fun. Next, least excited is Stephanie. Yeah, Stephanie, I'm mostly a bit more excited for her. I think Aussie kind of found himself in a really amazing situation, and I think Aussie's best ever season is always going to be Cook Islands, the way that season kind of played out. And I think that's the same with Stephanie. I think Stephanie's situation in Palau was far more interesting than she was. But I also kind of agree with the casting because I think she is the most popular female player ever. If you're looking at like peak popularity, I think nowadays it's probably Cirie. But I think if you're looking like peak popularity, I think after Palau, that's the most popular any female Survivor player has ever been. Very close to being the most popular Survivor player ever. So I get it. If you want to make this like a season where we do bring back these iconic legends of the game who haven't won yet, Stephanie's a good pick. But I also think we've seen enough of Stephanie. Like, I think we kind of saw both sides of Stephanie in Palau and Guatemala. Didn't see much of her in Heroes of Villains, obviously. I think Heroes of Villains, she got a bit unlucky. I think there was a pre-game alliance in the Heroes tribe, and that was always going to be kind of impossible to infiltrate. I think basically, kind of was basically everyone except for Candace, Stephanie, Colby, and Tom all kind of had an alliance heading into the game. And then Candace sort of just took Sugar's spot once they were out there. It's part of the reason why Sugar was so devastated after she got voted off first, because she kind of thought she was in with that alliance, and especially with JT, you can look more into that story later on. But yeah, in the end, Candace sort of took a spot in that place because she was a bit of a stronger competitor. But yeah, Stephanie, so we've really seen Stephanie, I guess, only 2 times, but I also have never really found Stephanie very compelling as a talker and as a character. But I did love she was the laugh on left in her tribe in Oolong. That was really captivating. But yeah, next up is Kyle. Kyle probably is actually the one who I'm most disappointed to see back. But it has nothing to do with Kyle. Kyle is a fantastic player. He's a winner. And I think if you're going to do Winners at War, you could very much do Winners at War 2 in Season 60 pretty easily, I think. Bringing back just, if you brought back most of the winners from Seasons 41 to 59, and then just bring back a bunch of the other winners from pre-Winners at War, you could have another Winners at War season in Season 60 pretty easily, I think. And we have had a lot of interesting winners. Kyle would be one of them. I'd totally cast Kyle for that. I think he's a really, really good winner. And I think recency bias goes both ways. I think time will tell as time goes on. We're going to see Kyle as like probably an even better winner than what he's ranked now. I think if I had to say Kyle is the best winner of the new era, I don't know if he's the best player necessarily, but I think he's very much in the running, and I think he is the best winner from the new era. But he's come back so recently, and he's also coming back with 2 of his number 1 allies, arguably his 2 top allies from this most recent season, in Camilla and Joe. And I think he really screws over Camilla, who is the next person who I'm least excited about. Camilla, I think Camilla's getting brought back for her potential, but I think there's no real point if we bring her back with Kyle, because it's like, well, we kind of want to see Camilla without Kyle. That's the whole draw. So that's why Camilla's next on my list, because again, I'd be more excited to see Camilla if it wasn't with Kyle. And also, Camilla for me wasn't that big of a character compared to other like people they could have brought back. Still good. I'm still all for seeing Camilla come back in a future season, but maybe not this one. This one probably should have been saved for like the biggest and the best players ever, who have never won. Like that's really what I would have done. I would have had like old school versus new school second chance to give you an idea, and I would have basically had season 35 to season 49 players, because they're the players who haven't really had a chance to come back yet, except for Winners at War. That's the new school, and then all the players from pre-game changes, they can all make up one tribe as well. And I basically just do a 2-tribe format again, and to start off, and then we mix them pretty soon, I think. But that would be my dream scenario for like a season. But yeah, so that's why. But yeah, Camilla, I think bringing back Joe, Kyle, and Camilla all in the one season, I think is, yeah. Wasn't really that excited to see any of them come back. And having them all come back together seems a bit pointless, but seems like, honestly, I think Camilla might be the biggest tip for first boot as well, because I think they're going to want to split up Kyle and Camilla and Joe, especially if they're all on the same tribe. They probably won't be, but I think they'll look at like, okay, well, who's the weakest challenge competitor? Like Kyle and Joe are both really strong in challenges, and Camilla isn't as strong, so Camilla could be in big trouble early on. And I want to see Camilla be able to play without Kyle. It's a bit like Francesca. Oh, I'm going to bring back Francesca. See, she seemed really cool. Oh, you're bringing her back with Philip. I'm like, ugh. Yeah, I mean, very different. I mean, they're bringing back rivals, but I kind of want to see people play without this person who was such a big part of their story the first time around. It's like if you were to bring back Eva, you wouldn't really want to see Eva come back with Joe. You'd want to see like Eva by herself, but I don't know if I really want to see Eva again. Next one, Chrissy. Chrissy is another one-time player. Didn't really like her that much. I do agree with this casting choice. I actually think it's really good. I'm stoked that they're bringing her back. But again, I'm not that interested, and I think she's another one who is a very likely first boot, just because I don't think she really knows anyone, and I don't think her social game is that great compared to the other people on the cast. I think we're bringing back all-stars, and the social game for these people is higher than an average season, and I think Chrissy's social game just isn't really that great. And yeah, I think Chrissy got a bit fortunate that there were just always bigger threats around, and she also was on a tribe with Alan Ball, who kind of... she was also on a strong tribe where they kind of avoided immunity, and Alan was sort of like a bit of a loose cannon, so she was able to sort of infiltrate that initial alliance. She did really well after the swap, getting in with Ryan, and then actually becoming Ryan's number one ally on that particular tribe over Ali, which is really impressive. But yeah, I think Chrissy's going to have a hard time. Great choice. I actually would have picked Chrissy as well, but yeah, I think that's probably the first time I've said that in one of my players. Next up is Dee. Now, Dee is different to Chrissy because I wouldn't have picked her, but I am more excited to see her. So again, I purely wouldn't have picked Dee just because I want to save the winners for Winners at War 2, which you could easily do in season 60, and I think Dee is a really obvious choice for Winners at War 2. But yeah, Dee is someone who I don't think is as great of a player as people said, but I can totally see her being better. I just don't think she had to do much. I think the Reba 4 really had a bit of a... Just from being competent in challenges and strategically, they were taking on a tribe in the yellow tribe who were terrible at challenges just because they had 3 really weak players. Or maybe just 2. Sorry, 2 really weak players that kind of, who really got them behind early on. And then you had the blue tribe who strategically were quite awful. Like, Bruce was a terrible player socially. Katura could not stand Bruce either, and I think that did affect her strategic game as well. And Jake was, God love him, great character, but not great strategically either. So they really had such an easy run to the end. All they had to do was just vote together, and they had a fairly easy run to the end. So I think Dee's had the easiest path of any winner going forward. And also the Dee-Austin relationship really did help her as well, because the fact that she found such a romantic connection with Austin, which, call me, naive, but I actually think that was genuine on the island. But And the fact that Austin was such a good player too really helped her as well. I think Austin has actually probably showed that he was a better player than D in that season, just because he was in situations where he had to do more. I think D could be great though, so I am looking forward to seeing her have a harder path to the end and try and overcome more obstacles, because I think before she had a pretty easy run as far as like modern day Survivor winners. It's one of the most easiest sort of runs that I can remember in recent years. Next up is Coach. Coach I wouldn't have picked just because we've already seen him 3 times, but he's absolutely fantastic TV, and it will be fun to see Coach for fawning over all the challenge beasts that are on this season, because he's gonna love it. I mean, God, can you imagine Coach with Jonathan and Joe and Colby? He doesn't like Aussie though, so that's an interesting dynamic. We didn't really see much of them together in South Pacific, but I can show you from interviews, Coach does not like Aussie. So if they end up on the same tribe, that could be the initial split. Is that Coach wants Aussie out, Aussie wants Coach out. I think just because he would probably know that Coach wants him out, and then which side are you going to choose, Coach or Aussie? If they're on the same tribe, watch out for that. But yeah, Coach I'm excited just because he's got a million one-liners, and he will be entertaining TV. Even though philosophically I do want less people who have played 3 times to come back. And Q is kind of very similar. I put Q and Coach in the same sort of category. Cannot wait to see Q back. Q was a great pick. Absolutely would have picked him. I have no idea what we're going to get from Q. He's almost like a more unpredictable... People compared him to Tony a lot, but he's not a great player really at all. But yeah, I think Q will probably once again want to bring in all the challenge threats all together. So I can see Q wanting to align with Joe and Kyle and Colby and Aussie and Jonathan and all these guys. We could see like a huge male alliance of all these people who are either big challenge threats or at least like view themselves as big challenge threats. And you've got all the people who have legitimately won a lot of immunity challenges and have been challenge threats, and then you've got Q and Coach who will also want to be part of that group. So yeah, we could see a big group of just guys run the show. I don't think it's actually going to happen, but yeah, it's possible. With this cast, I think Jeff has really had a hand in this cast, and I think he likes having people who are very good challenge competitors all on a season together, and that will be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing the battle between all these guys. It's very much similar to Heroes vs Villains, and All Stars had a similar dynamic where it's really fun to see all these guys who are some of the best challenge competitors in Survivor history all go at it. Genevieve is next. Genevieve, the Kim Spradlin 2.0. Genevieve was really interesting. Really had fun following her season, where she kind of started off as like the cold-hearted killer, and then kind of began to get really affected by it emotionally as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what she does with this season. But Genevieve is probably my winner pick, to be honest. I think she's a really good chance to win. Of the really recent seasons, she's actually the only one from her season too. So that was surprising. But yeah, I'm definitely keen to see Genevieve come back, and I think she could do really well. Also could do really well as Jenna from Borneo. Jenna is definitely the least interesting person from Pagong who could have come back. From Pagong, who made the merge at least. But I do think Jenna... We haven't seen Jenna's full potential yet as a character, and because I think she came in all guns blazing in All Stars, but honestly came off really unlikable and really annoying. But her tribe lost more, and then she kind of just took a backseat to Boston Rob and let Rob kind of like lead the charge for All Stars, and it did well for her. Like she came in she made it to the final 3. But yeah, I think we haven't quite seen the best of Jenna yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing where she ends up. And I think they just had to have someone from the first season, and there's a lot of iconic characters from the first season who just aren't aren't in contact with the show, or are maybe blacklisted from the show for various reasons. So yeah, I think there's a lot of the iconic characters from Borneo you just couldn't get. So I think you're kind of left with either Jenna or maybe Jervis as well. But we've already seen Jervis come back and play a full season more recently than Jenna. So Jenna's going to be a lot older too. It's the biggest gap anyone's ever had between seasons. So really looking forward to seeing Jenna back again. That'll be good fun. Next up, we've got Colby. So Colby, we'll see. Colby heading into Heroes of Villains. I know Jeff was talking about how he's really excited to play. He's really pumped up. And he said he wasn't actually, Jeff actually said he wasn't really sure about Boston Rob, whether his heart is totally in it. And then you saw the season, and Rob went really hard and played really well, even though he didn't last for that long, but he played really hard, whereas Colby just kind of lost interest. I think Colby might have fooled Jeff again and has been like really excited to play again, and then once he gets out there, he's going to realize how much Survivor sucks and how he doesn't really like the game that much. I think this is the cast to maybe bring out the best in Colby, because I think there's a lot of guys out there who he'll probably get along with really well. But Colby's ceiling is really high as a character, though. I remember I watched the Merge episode of Australian Outback recently, and he's just a one-liner machine. He's hilarious. No wonder everyone thought he was so cool in Australian Outback. He is freaking awesome in that season. And then All Stars, he's also great. I think he's fantastic in All Stars. He every time you cut to Colby, he has something hilarious to say about Richard. And I'm like, dude, if this guy's just the guy who just jokes around with Richard, and he was fantastic in both those seasons. I think Heroes as Villains, he was a big letdown, but I think he just didn't enjoy the experience. I think here he's out there with more people who he could get along with potentially. So, and he'll also have Stephanie, so that if they're on the same tribe, I imagine they're going to align again, just like they did in Heroes as Villains. So, yeah, I think we should be good too. I'm hoping that we get the best of Colby again, and it's very possible. It has been a very long time as well. It's been 15 years since Heroes as Villains. So, yeah, Colby again could be a completely different person. He'll be probably in his 50s now, early 50s. So, but apparently still in really good shape. So, yeah, really looking forward to seeing Colby. And I think, hopefully Colby would be higher in the rankings. But Colby's the one who I'm not as sure about. He could be the bottom if he goes out there and just doesn't really like playing the game like he did in Heroes as Villains. Or he could go out there and just be Colby from Australian Outback and All Stars and be really fun. And, Colby could be really good. He also doesn't suffer fools much, though. He seems to have very little patience for people. So I don't know how that's going to go, but I think overall he's out there with a very likable cast. So I think more likable than All Stars and Heroes as Villains. So I think he's probably going to have a lot of fun this time around. Next is Angelina. So Angelina I'm very excited about, but I think Angelina probably has developed a lot more self-awareness since the show. I think she was young enough to change in that sense. I think Coach went on the show and was sort of old enough where he wasn't really going to change much. But I think Angelina was still in her 20s when she played Dave vs. Goliath. So I think we may get a much more dumbed down version, not dumbed down, but like not as entertaining version of Angelina this time around. So I don't have huge hopes for Angelina to be as entertaining as she was in Dave vs. Goliath. And I think of the female players out there, she's probably one of the worst of the female players out there, because you've got a lot of good female players out there. Like, it's really stacked. So, yeah, I don't see Angelina doing much or having much influence on the game, to be honest. Yeah. But great casting choice. I would have cast her, absolutely would have cast her, though. I just think due to some circumstances, I think, and just the way she was in her first season and the way she now has grown since then, I don't think Angelina's going to be as good of a character, because she's probably older, developed more self-awareness, and not quite as good of a player because she's just up against tougher competition. Even though in Dave vs. Goliath she wasn't a very good player either. She really just got dragged to the end by Nick and Mike, really. Speaking of Mike's next. Mike is a great casting choice. I'm super pumped about this. I've always said I think Mike White is actually one of the best players to never win. Like, he's right up there for me. And I also think that he probably should have won, but I think he kind of just gave up in the final Tribal Council because he probably felt like a dick, like trying to take money away from this like downtrodden young lawyer who comes from this family who's had a lot of struggles. And yeah, I don't think Mike actually wanted to win in the end. I think he just wanted to play Survivor and have fun doing it. And I think it'll be the same this time around, because he's richer and more successful than he was last time. So yeah, I think Mike will be really fun to watch as a character and as a player. And I have a feeling Mike is also going to... Remember on day one in Dave vs. Goliath where he went around looking for the idol and kind of got busted and kind of went, okay, I need to like really step back and focus on social game. I could see Mike literally just ignoring that all and just going 100% looking for the idol and potentially getting voted off first. Or he's going to go really far and play a really good game because he's... But yeah, great player, great character. Charlie's next. Charlie's a great pick from season 46. One of the best players to never win, in my opinion, to not win their first season. Probably, yeah, I think him and Mike are firmly in the top 10 of greatest players to never win. Yeah, Charlie, I don't get the Taylor Swift thing at all, but, that's fine. I do think outside of that, I think Charlie was a really good character, though. Fantastic player. And also, like I said, with Kyle as well, one of the best players of the new era, for sure. Probably top 5. So really looking forward to seeing Charlie again. I think it was more circumstances outside the game that Kenzie got Maria's vote and ended up winning. I think it's, no matter how much you like and respect the guy, it's a little bit tough to award $1 million to, a kid who's just finishing up college and going off to be a lawyer. It's like, dude, you're going to be very successful anyway, and you haven't had the same hardships that Kenzie's had to deal with. Like, I would have voted for Kenzie, even though she didn't play technically as good of a game, I guess. But I still thought Kenzie played a great social game, and, just because she wasn't in the Bro Alliance with Q, it would seem like she didn't have as much influence on the game, but yeah. But totally cool with Charlie coming back. That'll be good. I love Jonathan. It is the challenge battles between a lot of these guys will be fun, and I think Jonathan's probably going to be the odds-on favourite to win a bunch of them. But with Jonathan, I just love him as a dude. I think he's awesome. I love that he stood up to Drea when she was banging on about the unconscious racism horseshit. I absolutely love that. I loved when every time he refers to Jeff, he says Mr. Jeff, and I love how he's just a really nice dude. And I loved a lot of the things that him and Mike were fantastic as well. And I think it really highlighted how a lot of people in Jonathan's situation do get labelled as like Romeo, for instance, was immediately just like, oh, I hate Jonathan and Mike, how they just sit there looking at the sunset and just... I was like, dude, you're just sexist at the end of the day. Genuinely, you're just being sexist. Sorry, Romeo, but you've got issues, buddy. And yeah, Jonathan and Mike was that their friendship was really, really great. And yeah, Jonathan as a guy also saying how he can't come back and raise his voice to a woman, otherwise she's going to go, oh, stop yelling at me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm just responding to what you said. That was such a good scene as well. Love Jonathan as a dude. I'm 100% keen to have Jonathan back. And it's not really because of the challenges necessarily. It is mostly because him as a guy is just someone we don't see on reality TV that much. We see loudmouth drama queens a lot more, and I'm like, give me the opposite of that. Give me Jonathan. Strong silent type. Yep, absolutely. And yeah, I don't know. I like him more than Joe. I think they're very much the same archetype of person, but I think, I don't know, I sort of was more excited to see Jonathan than I am Joe. Maybe because we just saw Joe as well, a week ago. Now we come back, we're getting into the top 5 now, and Emily, I'm so excited for Emily. I have so much time for the person who doesn't deal with, calls out dumbasses, like a better term. I love that about Emily so much. I love how she's just 100% cold, calculated. But also loved that at the Survivor auction when she started dancing and Jeff was like, who are you? And Emily was laughing. It was, yeah, I'm all for Emily coming back. It's going to be so much fun. She got very lucky to not be the first person voted off in her season, but I was so glad she managed to stick around and had this big redemption arc and was actually voted off because she was a big threat, which is amazing. And I think here she's going to hit the ground running and actually be legitimately a really good player, really influential character. Can't wait to see her and Jenna Lewis. I think her and Jenna Lewis are actually going to be a lot more similar than what most people would point out. And I think they're two archetypes who are very, very similar. Speaking of very competitive, very charismatic women, Tiffany. I put Tiffany up there a little bit higher though, because Tiffany has that challenge strength as well. But also I thought Tiffany was a fantastic player in 46. And honestly, a big contributor to why 46 is my favorite season of the modern era because there's so many good characters. There's other characters outside of Tiffany for sure, and I think Tiffany was the star of the early sort of episodes as well. If you can get past the Banu stuff, I think Tiffany was like a real standout in those early episodes surrounding that crazy purple tribe. So yeah, all for seeing Tiffany. She's got so much charisma. Again, very strong in challenges. I think she's got a great chance. Cirie, I'm breaking my rule a little bit with putting her in third. Yeah, I said that I don't want to see people who have come back so many times come back again. But yeah, I mean, Cirie's going to come back she's actually going to play Survivor for a sixth time because she's going to be playing Legends versus the World coming up next month, which will be so much fun. I'll get into that in another video. Obviously, I'm from Australia, so I'll do a video introducing you to the Australian survivors and also the South African and New Zealand representative on the world team. Just because it'll be good to give you guys a little bit of a preview of those players if you haven't seen them before. If you're going into that season only knowing Tony, Cirie, and Parvati, I can give you an idea of the rest of the cast except for two. I've never seen Survivor Quebec or Survivor Finland, so I don't know Tommy and Cassie, but everyone else I know. And it's such a good cast. It's a way better cast than this one, but to be fair, I don't think you could possibly get a better cast than Legend vs. the World. That's the best cast an All-Star season has ever done. It's absolutely amazing. They pretty much got the first choice in everything. In every single player is like exactly who I would have picked. That's another video. But for now, Cirie, really excited to see her play. Again, I think she is... she's always going to be a little bit in trouble in these seasons, just because she is weaker in challenges, but she never really seems to be voted off or targeted early necessarily. In Game Changers she was, and her tribe luckily did not go to tribal council, so that was pretty lucky for her. Because I think there she did get very, very unlucky with the casting though, like getting on the same tribe as Aussie and JT. Granted, I don't think Aussie had any ill will with Cirie in Game Changers, and we saw later on in the game they actually started working together, which was really nice. But I think Aussie just pointed out, like, look, she's probably one of the weaker members in the tribe, and she's a huge strategic threat. Like, there's no real upside to keeping her in the game, so that's always a risk for Cirie. But again, she, in my opinion, is the greatest player to never win. I think she's probably the second best player in the American series of Survivor, and yeah, I'd say for me, Cirie is the person I'd want to see win the most, because I want to see Cirie win Survivor more than anyone else. So then I can talk about how Rob Cesternino is the best player to never win. So I think he'd be number 2 on the list, behind Cirie. And then we got the top 2. Rick Devens is number 2 and Christian is number 1. These two are pretty much interchangeable. I'll give it to Rick Devens at number 2 though. I'll just dock him because he has already been voted off twice. So in a way, he's played twice. But in another way, he got very unlucky in season 38 because Joe was on the other team, and the other team were a lot stronger in challenges due to that. And his tribe went to tribal council a lot early on. But yeah, Rick was so much fun to watch. One of my all-time favourite players. His litany of fake idols was so much fun to follow, and especially that tribal council where 2 players pulled out fake idols, and then he was like, okay, I've got a real one. And he whipped that out. Yeah, Devens is so much fun. He's so sassy when he's the underdog. I don't know if that situation's going to happen again, and I think it's hard to picture Devens being in as good of a spot as far as like building a fan following as that, because he was such a fun underdog to follow. But he's going to give a lot of good talking heads, and he's going to be out there looking for idols and making fake ones, and he can pull off big moves as well. And Christian is the number 1 pick. Again, my favourite player in the cast is Cirie, that's for sure. But Christian, again, he's only played once, so he like Devens, gets ahead of Cirie based on that formula. And Christian, talking about him spearfishing is one of my favourite scenes in Survivor history. Nothing to do with strategy, it's just him narrating himself spearfishing. And it is so much fun. Absolutely loved it. And yeah, huge fan of Christian. I think he's such a likeable guy. People have talked about like the nerdy sort of superfan archetype. For me, he's my second favourite. If you include Rob Cesternino in that superfan archetype, nerdy kind of archetype, that would be Rob C would be my favourite in that mould. But yeah, Christian's number 2. So and Christian is number 1 on this list. Can't wait to see him back. I think he was an obvious choice as well. And yeah, really fun to see him, Mike, and Angelina all play again. Love Dave vs Goliath, one of my favourite seasons. So anyway, can't wait for this. It's going to be great. And I've got to go pee, so I'm off. And enjoy the channel. I'll post a lot more Survivor stuff coming up later on. And you guys have a great day.